It's time for change to move into the real work of the universe. And it's time to understand that we use the matter state to reach the level of understanding of the soul of the man. Now you understand maybe why the Creator has sent his messengers in the name of whatever you have had. Is that they bring the ears, that it can be used when the time of the Messiah comes. They can teach the soul and the messenger, not to oppose. But by them understanding through those who have become Messiahs, to give from their souls to these to elevate, the job is made easy. The school is there and the students are devotedly there. Then there won't be any fight between what they call the Muslims and the Christians. The lamb and the lion will eat and sleep in the same nest. The Christians and the Muslims will sleep and pray in the mosque and in the same church in the name of their souls, not in the name of religion that is used to create so much conflict for the benefit of those who were the hyperactive children. The time has come, the time of change is here. And as I said, my wish is my command. If it's your wish to see peace, path of peace is laid very clearly. It's the soul of the collective awareness. By giving will create that position of change. No other thing. There is no pen in the soul of the man. And I'm sure once you go into the universal community, you will never see anything written but the balance of the fields of the soul of the existence. Try to be humble enough not to become arrogant in the power that you have understood and you possess. Otherwise, you'll fall in the same path of the church and the mosque. This is what we promised, and this is what we have delivered. We have to understand the operation of the soul, and we have to understand the soul of the man is a star in the cosmos of the universe. If we compare the soul of the man and many of us, 7 billion in one collection, Earth is like a galaxy with so many stars. When we look in the depth of the universe, we see galaxies with hundreds of millions of stars in it. So is the planet Earth. It carries 7 billion beautiful stars, which are the soul of the man. Carries with it soul of so many trillions of animals, plants, and everything else. So if you look, when someone who does not see the physicality of the earth and its content, what do they see? they see a galaxy with so many beautiful lights shining, each one according to their strength, each one according to their position. An infant has a beautiful soul, so has the old man. To those who do not see the physical dimension of this planet, but they see the strength of the field, we are clusters of stars. The human race, every single soul, no one from a distance sees that's the soul of a fisherman, that's the soul of the cosmologist, that's the soul of the president. They all shine irrespective of the physicality. This is the magic. This is what the new science has to bring to man. When we look through our soul, we see nothing but a star in the other souls. And this is the break. This is the understanding. This is what all these teachings are about. Coming to mature to the next level, to understand in the deep space, the universe is the oyster for those souls who serve. Then man is ready to go into space. Then man is ready to become part of the universal community which has been promised. I never promised you heaven. I always promised you the elevation of the man to join the family. And now you have the key. It's you who has to open the door to understand, if I can raise the soul of these people or millions of other souls, that the physical life on this planet changes, then I'm worthy to be part of the universal community. To be there to serve, to expand, to be there to be part, that in the cycle of life of universe, I become, in being part, I become part of the totality. When man reaches that point, a new dimension in the strength of the soul of the man will appear, which is beyond imagination of understanding of the physical life. It's the gate to the opening of the new life, in a new dimension, which is beyond imagination of what you might call a new beginning, a new cycle, which that cycle carries with itself the origin of the creation of life in the universe and the universe. It's the elevation of the soul to serve, become the key, not a throne of the physical life. The time is right. The time has come for the man to go through this process.
Welcome everyone to the 268th Knowledge Seekers Workshop for Thursday, March 21st, 2019. This is a production of the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute and is the public teaching in English. My name is Rick Crammond. I'll be your host today, along with Flint Mulhausen. And as usual, we are joined with Mr. Keshe of the Keshe Foundation. And I believe he's ready to speak with today's teaching. Hello, Mr. Keshe.
Yes, good morning, good day to you, as usual. Wherever and whenever you listen to these Knowledge Seekers series of workshops. Um, as many of you are aware, today is the first day of the spring, it's equinox. And in so many ways, people of Silk Road celebrate this day as a beginning of the new year and as part of the Silk Road, which as Iranian nation we are, I give all the Iranians and people of the Silk Road the warmth of the new year. Eid Hameh Shoma Mubarak. It's been tradition that this day we share gifts and we give gifts. Maybe the knowledge we share today will be one of the biggest gifts we can give each other. In part of the knowledge, understanding is being able to communicate. That's what it's a gift, that we can talk, we can understand each other, and we can communicate, sometimes by sign, sometimes by word, sometimes by emotion, and sometimes as we enter the dimensions of the universal community through the language of the soul of the man. Some people have created a new words for what is already been here from the beginning of time. Zero time communication. Those of you who talk about the zero time communication means you have not understood the work of your own soul. The soul of the man has always been in working at the zero time communication. Now, as we understood more and more about the creation and different aspects of the technology of life, now we come to understand we have already known about zero time communication. It's just that we could not find out where the noise was coming and who was making the noise, who was talking and who was listening, and how fast it was done. Then it brings us to one of the most important parts of the what we call, as we become the voyagers of the space, as we join the universal community. We worked so hard to learn how to make the fuel. We worked so hard to get the reactors. We worked so hard to start moving. We have managed to get ourselves out of this village of Earth, and now we come across the being of the universe. How do we communicate? How do we tell them we love you? How do we tell them we are men of peace? They don't understand Chinese, Russian, Farsi, or English, but they understand one thing: the language of the soul of the man. If you go back to some of the teachings of very, very early time, I always said that they read your mind before you even open your mouth, because they don't need it, they read what the soul is thinking. And then, if you understand, you can always be on your guard that I don't want to think nothing bad, just in case they think I think bad, that they can do something with it that is not my intention to do or say, but my soul just want to think that way. And then it goes back to the teaching of Zoroaster. He says, Kedaranic, Koftaranic, Pendaranic. It means think good, do good, and act good, speak. So if you look at it, the Iranians as Russians were already men of space. They've been trained before to be ready for today when the man takes into space. That they do not even think, let alone do wrong or talk wrong. So we understand different cultures have matured in different way, and in so many ways, many of the new time scientists talking about the zero time communication have not understood that their own souls has been at this work for centuries. But how do we communicate with this zero time communication machine, which is the soul of the man? And how do we transfer and translate the knowledge of the other souls in the universe? Then, as nowadays we say that the common language is English on this planet, or is becoming more of, then some times ago they said the language of Esperanto will become part of it, but never picked up because it was too complicated. We have already learned some words, yes, no, please, and as many Chinese tell you, is yes, thank you, no, please. Where in fact the English says yes, please, no, thank you. And then you can see what a laughter we make of our own conducts in the depth of space. Can you imagine your soul saying no, thank you, when you mean yes, please? Or you say yes, thank you, no, please? Or we don't need that language because the other side reads, we are thankful for seeing our, what we call, fellow men of universe. On earth, we kiss and cuddle, we shake hand, or we bend. How do we shake hand with the soul of a stranger in the depth of space when he tells you he loves you, he respects you, and he thanks you for joining the community? He has no physical dimension for you to cuddle, and he has no dimension, no lips to kiss you on the cheeks. He lost it long time ago when he matured in the dimension of the universal community, where he doesn't kill to consume, and where he doesn't have a mouth to utter wrong words. How does mankind mix this new non-verbal zero-time communication? Then it comes to another point. As we know, our soul travels the depth of the universe, and sometimes somewhere meets the cousin, the mother, the friend. In the spans of the universal soul, then you come to understand what you dream and what you remember at that time of the dream is zero-time communication. Your physicality is in the dimension of this planet, but your soul is in the presence of the soul of the speaker or the one you communicate with. Then we understand man lives this double life of being in two dimensions, keeping the physicality on the earth, but letting the soul to fly on the wings of freedom of its space. Then it comes, how do we bring these two together? Can we change? Can we exchange? Can we develop systems that our words of physicality is heard by the ear of the soul of the receiver, not through the ear of his physicality? Then, do we need to live this planet to become the man of space? But now that we understand that the soul of the man in a zero-time communication can travel the span of universe, is there a need for man to leave the village of Earth? Or do we just leave because it's nice to be tourists of the space? Then we come to one point. That is, when we want to go somewhere, when we want to communicate, we use our soul. But if we want to become the tourist of the space, we use the spaceship. It's very much like, I want to go to the office, I take my own car. Or I wanted to go to the office, but I like to chat with this and that, I get a bus. Do we call the soul of the man the private car? And we call the spaceship the public transportation? Because I can talk to who I like, and I can see the scenery, the buildings and everything else. Then it comes back to the beginning of the teachings. And in many teachings, I have said, man uses different names for the same purpose or for the same thing. So, does the single transportation of the body of the man in physical dimension become the use of a private car? And then when he wants to travel the span of the universe that he knows of his time and existence, he becomes the traveler of the soul of the universe. But sometimes it's good to be with the others. And then sometime it's good that you try to come on a bus which doesn't go from your house to the center of the village or town, but it goes through different part of this planet. And in that process, you see the Chinese, you see the Indians, you see the Persians, and then you see the black. You go to see the white man, and then you go across America and we see the red Indians, and then we come to South America. And then the question comes, won't the new ship, the new bus, will do the same for us and will take us this time across different galaxies and universes for us to see the beauty of each? We just change the name. But the purpose is the same: to see more, to understand more, to appreciate the beauty of, and to live the life that it has no burden on others. Then it comes the reality that what have we done to ourselves as a man on this planet? What was the purpose of all this killing and destruction? Why don't we put aside all this and become men of peace, and together we enjoy the journey on this planet and beyond? This is what is about to happen. In a coming time, we disarm all the arms. In coming times, I will make a rose out of every gun. It's very easy. As knowledge seekers, you have learned the transmutation of the elements through the transmutation of energy. The root of the flower, the stem of the flower, sitting on the bullet becomes the energy source for it to exist. Will not shoot a bullet, but will grow the rose of peace. Fortunately, and very fortunately, the Keshe Foundation, through operation with the nations of the world, is on the verge of this achievement. Very soon you will understand, sooner than you think. Then we all make the bus, and we all decide which bus, on what road, on which city, and which continent, and which galaxy. Maybe the spaceship will still make the same stops because it's too much to go to planet Zeus without taking the others who are waiting in Washington or in Tehran or in Beijing and all want to go to the same destination. Would the spaceship stop at every stop, international route to universal route? And then when we land together on planet Zeus, they ask you, where are you from? You don't say I'm Chinese or I'm Iranian or I'm American. You say we are from planet Earth. And this is the ultimate goal of the work of the Keshe Foundation. And sitting where I sit today and being the Iranian New Year, this is the gift I bring. The leaders of the world have decided to go the path of the Keshe Foundation. And in due course, we all become the passengers of these ships. I've been asked to keep quiet and do not talk till they are ready. But the preparation for this journey has started. It's not anymore the knowledge seekers on this chat room or on this teaching or those who listen to these teachings. Now is that the voice of our work over years has been heard by the leaders of this planet, and we have seen the response. The work of becoming the travelers of the space is not just to get on the spaceship. Now is to learn the zero time communication of the soul of the man. If I could share with you what I have in my hand and what we have in the progress of the mankind towards world peace, most of you will say, I was there when he said it. And we deliver what we have said. The leaders of this planet have decided to take the path of peace. And we have seen the first signs and we have become part of it. It has been our wish and it's been our destiny to be at this time. But the process of disarmament, the process of world peace is a gift that we can give you today as a Iranian New Year's gift. It's not a dream. Even in past few seconds before the teaching starts, I've received the pictures which confirms more the commitment of mankind to peace through its world leaders. We are not the dreamers. We have worked so hard to achieve it. It's not a wish anymore. Now it's become the reality fact, which is now takes time, very short time, to become part of the structure of the humanity in the coming months. Those who are very close around us, they know the situation. In so many ways we want to shout, but in so many ways we have to let those who organize it to do the shouting. It's their victory in understanding the peace is the ultimate goal of the human race, not us. We are the facilitators as Keshe Foundation. But the whole thing goes back on one thing, that if I learn to speak in a zero-time communication with the man on planet Zeus, why don't I do it on this planet? And then if I can understand the zero-time language communication of the man on the planet Zeus or anywhere else in the universe, these are all entities which I have no understanding of their living, but they are there as creatures, they respond to me I smile back most probably. I say hello through my soul and they answer hello. Just say I love you, meeting you, and I get the same feeling back. It means they love me too. Then it comes to me on this planet, if I can read the soul of all these things in the universe, would I read the soul of the lamb? Or would I read the soul of the chicken? And it says, do not eat me. I love you. I have the right to live. Then would we take that step to kill, to survive? Or would it change us to understand this zero time communication allows us to develop new tools, to be able to understand new resources of life? Then life becomes very hard on this planet, because even a grain of rice has a soul. We know it has because when we send a grain of rice or wheat to the lab sends us a report. 15% protein. It means it carries many, many lives inside it. Protein is not on its own. It's a cycle of life. Is your muscle tissue protein or your eye? Then you have to consider, cannot talk. And then would the man take the new path? Zero time communication in zero time supply of energy from the universe. Then, then would we find a way to zero on the energies which are not needed in the universe, become the source of life for mankind to live. We are not philosophical. This is what many of you are going to face very, very soon. This is just opening of a little gap between the door and the frame, and the light shines from the other side. Is it going to startle us, or are we going to open our eyes to the facts and the reality of what is behind the light and what is shining? One of the biggest problems in the coming time will be for mankind to understand the language of the soul of those who are the permanent travelers, sightseers, tourists of the universe. If you thought that only Chinese nowadays travel to see the whole planet, you do not know how many from other planets are travelers of this space. We have a beautiful saying Farsi. I've said it before. We say, "Gah kahin nashavi raswa ham rangi jamaat jo." If you don't want to be seen, become part of the scenery, the group you're in, then you don't stand out. So we become intelligent enough to travel to planet Zeus. We cannot walk with two legs and two arms, where these people have no legs and no arms and they float. Wouldn't that be funny? So how do you get rid of the legs and the arms and you start floating that they don't know you are from planet Earth? You need so much energy to get two legs moving, where you can tune. There's a soul of the guy down the road and he pulls you there and you tune the next soul down the road and you get where you want to go. No energy spent. Then you understand we truly have to start becoming the travelers of this universe. Because now we have become aware of the things we have to do and the things we can do and the things we cannot do. We become aware of Chinese, when we start learning how to use the chopsticks and how to sit and talk, then we have become a tourist. Now, how do we learn about how to hold the tool of the soul of the man in planet Zeus? Don't forget, he is mature to the level that he doesn't need knives and forks to eat. He takes from the space of the universe what it needs and what is made available. If you think of it, the universe is like your mother. You remember when you were a child, mom takes the spoon and you it, then you grow faster and she enjoys you. Now mankind has come to become that child of the universe. And there are many mothers who have the spoon ready to let the child mature. And this child, which is the mankind, has to become very kind to himself, to allow it to understand the love of the mother and how to mature. And what are the traditions and what are the yeses and nos in the dimension. Many of you think this is not for me, it won't happen in my time, and when it comes, I learn. I have a very bad news, extremely bad news. The time is now, and the place is this as we are. The time has come for us to become part of the universal community. And in a short time, many of you will take into the wings of fires in the universe. You will learn all the tricks of somersaulting in the space without anything and saying, I haven't eaten for 3 years and I'm not hungry because I've learned how to tap into what nobody else needs as energy. You see, there is a secret in the work of the universe. Now that you understand the work of the gans, now that you understand and you've seen that you have transferred the energy of the gans into the water and you drank it and it gives you the taste of the orange, many of you were wondering what are the stars for? That's exactly what they are for. They are the providers of the energy without the man to kill. The stars are filling stations for those souls who travel the space of the universe that they do not need to kill. They are fuel stations of the universe. But unfortunately, man has missed one thing, that he waits for these fields to convert to the matter, that he can use it. He says he received energy. But when you become the passengers of the universe, your fuel stations are all those billions of stars in space. You just need to learn how to tank. And don't forget, when you want to tank a car, there is a fuel tank. It's got a cap and it's got a key. You have to put the key inside to open the cap to be able to fill it. Now, it's for mankind to find a key that it can tap in to the universal energies which are released by all the, what you call the sons of this universe. Now you know why there are so many stars. They are not there for the beauty of your eyes, they are there for the nourishment of your souls. Then mankind shall not kill. Then you take the same as the earth takes what it needs from the sun, you become another planet. The planet of the soul of the universe. then you understand that we have already been the passengers of the spaceship. We just forgot to look outside to see we are inside one. We always waited to see if there is another one that we can see. In so many ways, when you travel the depth of the universe, you don't look for food, you don't look for energy, because there are billions of stars, fuel stations, big, small, strong, weak, many planets, and the rest. It's very much what you are used to. You have different lines and different sources of fuel stations. Total, Shell, BP, whatever you want to call it. But one of the best service stations you never tanked in is Lukoil, because nobody has told you how beautiful they work. But you always looked in one direction, and that is to consume. You never looked for you to be able to receive the ray of the suns that you can use to exist. You have to give back, otherwise there is no room to fill in. Then you understand only stars can exchange energy with the stars. Then you understand the soul of the man is a star in the universal galaxy. You cannot receive if you cannot give. You cannot fill in if you haven't emptied the space. Then you understand what has been said even in the beginning of this teaching today. Earth has 7 billion stars. Then comes the question that if there's so many stars on this planet, which I see them in physicality, why don't I become the feeder of their souls and I receive what they don't need for me? That in that respects, I adapt soul of physicality to fit in with the environment of the existence. Then we'll find out man will need no food to eat, because it's given to what it needs, recognition of existence and the composition of the fields of the universe, to confirm that the man is man of peace, not war. Then comes the question, and that is, have you understood what the zero time communication is? Or you're still in the maze of lack of knowledge according to your own intelligence? But how do we make this zero time communication to work? Now that we know our soul is the tool of our communication, how do we tap into it? We need a gans of CO2 for communication line. We need some gans of zinc, which could be connection to the soul. We don't need any ganses of copper. That's for physicality. But we need to communicate with the soul of another being from this planet. Could it be the protein or the amino acid of the magnesium with a little bit touch of calcium? Then, if you go back to part of the teaching, I always said oxygen is the magnetic field, not iron, in the life of the creatures of this planet. Then, as you have seen, that only magnets of the iron gets attracted by another magnet made of iron, then Now that you have created the soul of the man with the fields of it, how do you match up? Or you catch up with other souls? It's getting very complicated. I can feed my son, and at the same time he can feed me, and the wife is next door. She's feeding both of us through her soul, but we are waiting for the cuddles of physicality to confirm she loves us. Then the question comes, do I need you, or do you need me to teach each other how to make the guns of the soul and the system which are motors that the soul can recognize? Or we start understanding the operation of the brain of the man that becomes that dynamic core, that in translating the information of the soul to become the motion of the arm and the hand, but becomes the language of the man, soul of the man, and the physicality of the existence, the dimension of the universe. I do apologize, I have a very bad blocked nose. I think I've been enjoying too much of the new year. But it comes to one point. Now that you know you have been carrying this zero time communication, and a lot of you still have a problem even finding it, now you have to communicate with it. Then it comes to the point, do you want to travel alone? Or would you like to be part of the passenger list of the spaceship? Then, would you like to be prejudiced and only travel with the Chinese and no Englishmen? Or you become very modern and chic and you want to have everybody on board. It's good to be seen that you are with the others. Then, now that you're on this ship, sorry, you cannot eat me or the others. But I have plenty of energy from the resources of my soul that I don't need. If you're hungry, would you like to tap into it? And I take some of the things you don't need. I might not need it, but if I need it, it's there. But if I use it, when you come back, you got what I gave you. And I keep what he gave me, but we share a little. I gave you examples in a very soft way, but in the coming time, this you remember. Many of the things taught will dictate your life on this planet. Now we come to one point, and that is, do you have any question about your own zero time communication? Or do you want to be still in the life of denial and just wait to see that I'm not the first fool to make a fool of itself? Very simple teaching today. The zero time communication, the soul of the man, and the confirmation that I exist through interaction of the soul of the man with the others. And now for the first time I found a free energy fuel tank station called the sun. I don't need to wait for the earth to convert it into the meat and fat and wheat. And then I take some of it and I have to get rid of the rest of the physicality of it. This time I take what I need. When I need, I tune into the taste which I like, and at the same time, as I'm not wasting so much energy to digest the physicality, I become myself the source of life to the others. And then I take what they don't need and I give them what they need, and I become a new Jewish businessman. Just put some profit on it. 100% is not too bad. But what am I going to do with it? There are no banks and no factories to buy a stereo system, and you go and see children. You bring them the gift of the universe in understanding more, and not another iPad and iPhone. Any questions? Ask yourself one question. How many of you in the last 2 or 3 nights had a dream and you remember that dream? So you already have been the passenger of zero time communication, but you lost your mobile phone. And the strangest thing is, you think you can find this mobile phone only when it's dark, because it glows and you can't find it. But it's with you 24 hours a day. Why don't you tune into it all the time? So, how many of you remember your dream of past days? And then, you know you already achieved zero time communication, because that dream was at the time when it took place in the presence of, through the soul interaction. Then, would you like to speak to Mama, which you were speaking to during your dream? She's there in the same place as it was the time of the dream. It's you who have not understood how to use the line of communication. It's like being scared if anybody sees it, that they see me, I'm talking to my mom. But I know she's not in a physical life. But how come I can talk to her in my dream? Now I have found out I can do it through my life, daily life. Then would we become sun worshippers and stand outside with the hands and arms open to absorb as much as? But we forgot one thing. The converter part, to convert it to the energy of the soul, we left it in the house on the table. How are you going to survive? Do you start eating the others? Or you have learned a trick you can tap into at the lower level till you get home and you can plug it in. A strange life has this man.
Thank you, Mr. Keshe. And that was exactly my question, actually. I had a dream a few days ago.
But
And my mom, not my physical mother, no, but about the mother, I don't know if you call it mother, father, about the principal light, essentially. The dream I had was of being able to, I was in sort of a semi-dream state, I guess you might say, just before going to sleep. And suddenly I was, with my eyes closed, I was seeing a light off to one side, very intense light, but it developed as I relaxed and allowed it to, and it became intense. And I realized there was a blockage in me. I couldn't allow that to just flood into my whole being. There was a resistance, this something wouldn't allow me to fully confront that light, or accept that light. And I'm wondering,
do you know what would have happened if you would have confronted that light?
well, it may have dissolved me in that
It's
moment, and that
time.
might have been the end of my physicality life or something like that. Possibly that's the impression it was
You're
of another.
100% right.
So in a way, that light is the, you might say, the greatest predator of the physicality of man.
No, it's the freedom of the man.
Well, yes, exactly. It's one and the same in a way, because it depends on what perspective one is looking at. If you look at it from the, if we adopt the perspective of the physicality, well, it has, you know, a certain outcome. The physicality always has the same outcome. It's eventually going to die. That's the bottom line. Is
Oh, this is what we call it the wrong way. You don't die. You just take a new dimension. Death, physical separation is not death. The true death comes when your soul gives all its belonging, all its assets to the other souls. And even then, you're still flourishing inside those souls. It's got your name on it. I'm here. It's very much like when you make gans of CO2, you have a carbon and you have oxygen. The two are inside each other, even they came from different dimensions. This is the wrong image man has about his souls and their existence in the universe. Once created, once collected, it never finishes. It's something which is written in the books, and because we don't have that access to see that light, then we have called it all sorts of names. They say when your soul becomes pure, you become aware of his existence, and then you see the light. It's very much when many conversions and diversions, when you reach near the time of death, especially if you have certain color of eyes, your eye turns to a very light blue, a bluish gray blue. This is the point, because the soul is leaving the body, creates that color. The same as you have a red shift and a white shift, you have a soul shift. Many people observe it, but they don't understand what it means. You are observer to the motion of the transportation of the soul from the body of the man. Sometimes takes time, sometimes it's very rapid. You see with the eye of the man, in a way, the light, which is the white light, they call it, or the light, that it means it carries all the good things. It's not taking anything with it. It's going with the giving, and that is why we say the soul is white when it travels, because it's coming to you to give to the direction of the soul. Don't forget, in the dimension of understanding of the plasmatic field, the strongest always gives to raise the slower, the weaker one to its own strength. If you are the one who is leaving the body of the man, so you are receiving higher strength from outside, so that the strength to you is the light. This is why we see the light. And if somebody is observing that you are leaving the physicality, it's like in the physical matter, the strength we see the redshift, we call it. But in the dimension of observation of the soul of the man leaving the physicality, we see this specific gray bluish color. Then one day I explain to you why you see that color. Man is not mature enough.
Thank you, Mr. Keshe. I'll remind the attendees that they can put their hand up and then we can allow you to speak. And we
I
have
would,
panelists here.
I would like to thank the Iranian community, my gratitude and thanks, maybe in so many ways, to be called the father of Iran. Sami, is that not? We learn more, and with it, we share more. And that's all the father can do to give. This is a great honor from the Iranian community. Thank you very much.
Mr. Keshe, there's a question from Wolfgang in the live stream. Please explain more about the soul and its function in the network of souls, so-called soul of the man. What happens to the soul, for example, a soul of rice in the body of man? How does this affect the universe?
Nothing. We are just bunch of souls forever going from one to another. We are passengers of the universe without physical dimension. We call it the soul.
So, what would happen to that soul of the grain of rice when it enters into our
Still is
our
part of the
mouth?
same. Mr. Rick Bramant, you are one of the very first ones, or part of the first ones, who mix the gases and put them in the bowl and you rotate them. Did they mix and totally disappear, or each one kept its color and some made in interaction of the fields new colors, but they still stayed the same? We just become a collectors. Have you watched that movie called The Bone Collectors? The soul of the man, the soul of physicality of the man is soul collector, but in very, very little ones. But as we collect, we give ourselves too, so we need to refill to be able to give. So if you look at it, we are a fuel station ourselves anyway. We just, if you read the end of one of the books, it says, I think in so many words, if I remember correctly, God is the creator and man the converter of some. So our soul and our physical body is a small converting machine. It's a fertilizer of souls, if you want to call it. Gathers, recycles, and gives. But you got to understand, what does it give to? Who's using all these fields which we convert to? We call it the aura, but where does it end? It's not only 2 centimeters next to your body. It expands the span of universe. So have you become a soul energy collector and become a soul feeder because now you convert it? That's all we are, a conversion machine. Now you understand what's at the end of the book. It wasn't mean that you take the coal and you burn it and you convert it. It meant the work of the soul of the
Okay, so if we look at our body as a conversion machine,
What do you mean
then
if? We are, don't if it.
well,
We
it's
are.
just taking that perspective. I totally agree. It's a lovely way to put it. Where does the discernment come in as to what we actually eat and put in our mouths, like what's the difference between that, the soul of the grain of rice, or the soul of a lamb, or the soul of an elephant, or whatever?
It's no
What
difference.
about those physicalities that eat other humans, cannibalism as it's called? And
Is there any
is
difference
there,
between the man and the cow? Or is it just the man would like to see he's a superior, he cannot be eaten? What happens to you when you die? What repeats it to you? What's the dilemma? What is the problem? You have a control till the time there's a connection between the soul and the soul of physicality. What happens the minute you die? Nothing. You share it between amongst the others, the worms, the cat, the dog, and everything else that could pass by. Or we put it in the coffin and we just call it, it's there safe. But at the end of the day, it disappears. If you're in a coffin and there's nothing there, where's it gone to? Which animals have you seen you haven't seen? We are forever in the process of conversion. Never ends. As I said once to a scientist, catch the worm which is in the flesh of the man, and then check his digestion system and DNA, see how much of it the man is eating. Not in the DNA, but in the field strength of the DNA. It's part of it. Man thinks of himself too much, he's too important.
okay, it brings another question to me. Is there something we can do when we're on this planet to practice the best habit in terms of eating in front of the universal community, or in
Just
the
one
presence of
second,
that
please.
universal
Can you
community?
repeat? Can you repeat?
Okay. What is there something we can do while we're on this planet to ensure that we are accepted in the universal community with our eating habits, our habit of ingesting souls, let's say? So we can't just go out in space and start ingesting any soul we wish, because we might ingest something that we don't like eventually. It may not digest so well. May be the end of our soul if we do that, perhaps. So, in the presence of the universal community, what is the best way to present oneself to, I guess I'm caught up between two worlds here, and perhaps we won't have those issues when we meet on the soul level and with the universal community, because we won't be worrying about what we're eating so much. I'm just thinking, we're invited to a banquet in the universal community, and maybe some of the things in front of us we shouldn't be eating, or we shouldn't think about eating, because that's wouldn't be considered kosher, let's say, at that meeting. It might be their friends that they're actually sitting at the table, and we think it's food, for example. And because of our habit just to put food into our physicality, would we tend to have that habit with the universal community? And if so, that might not be a good habit to have in that instance. Is that a problem, or am I just making this all up in my mind?
I think I'm making it up in your mind.
Okay. Maybe we should go back to confronting that light. Okay. We have a couple of other questions. So Wolfgang then says, but then eating is no problem because the rice just changes position, like a black hole or the center of a galaxy. Why will the soul shut down the body if we eat?
I don't understand. What do you mean by that?
Well, he's saying that the rice just changes position. It's like changes. It would be like a plant, a sun or a star changing its position in a galaxy. You still have the black hole or the center of the galaxy, and if the soul basically is that black hole or center of the galaxy, and if a star changes position, it's not a big deal to the center of the galaxy. That's the way I understand the question. I'm not totally clear on that, but
Mr. Keshe, I have a question. Good morning.
Has there been a time you don't have a question, Azhar?
That was the answer to the question, actually, Azhar. Thank you for that. Zero time communication.
Mr. Keshe, what's the point of all?
I read her mind before.
What's the point? What's the point of all these things, like creation of the planet Earth?
What's the point?
What's the point? I mean, all these things we've done and the Creator has done. We existed, then the planet exists, then we killing each other and all these things. I mean, why Creator is doing this? I mean, what's the point of all this?
Who said the Creator is doing it? It's us. We think we are so important.
I understand we're doing it, but the only thing is, what's the point of all this? I mean, why did it started first? Why it has started first to begin with?
You know, we had nothing to do. We sat with the God and we said, let's play something, see what we make. And solar system was something nice to do. And then making other things much nicer. And then it came to see if they can think, and then we thought if they can play. And then we created man. Amongst many things, not just a man. Why does everything have to have a purpose? God is a busy thing and he does his thing. This is the problem. We have created them, we have to have an excuse and a purpose for everything. Anything else?
I'm reminded that the saying you were speaking about from the book, The Universal Order of Creation of Matter, Eva suggests the saying was, God has been the creator of all and man the creator of some. And you've also said from the structure of the light, the man has come from, he exists, operates through, and he shall return to the light. Thank you, Eva, for those quotes.
Cash, I think the problem is we're trying to have an explanation for everything. We just can't let it be everything for it what it is. That's the problem. We can just be like a flower that sits there.
You see, you are a flower, and the only one who's got to appreciate that you're beautiful and you're a flower and your soul is beautiful is you. Do you understand?
Yes, completely.
So, what's the problem? We don't need to wait to be confirmed who we are. We've got to understand who we are ourselves. The problem is that we have lost trust in ourselves. This is the problem. Giovanni, can you check your messages, please, if you're listening?
We have Arno with his hand up now. If you can take a question, Mr. Keshe.
I can take any question. Doesn't mean I'm going to answer it as usual.
You don't have to answer. I just want to share. When I close my eyes, it's brighter than I have my eyes open for 8-9 months now. And before I thought the same what Rick thought, that we stop being here. But when you let it come to you, it's not 100% you leave your body, because I have that light in me now for 7-8 months, day and night. When I close my eyes, the light is brighter than with open eyes. It's different light, but it's very bright. And 4 weeks ago, I could see it with my eyes open. And when I saw something of myself, what I really liked, that I did it. Yeah, that's what I want to share. Thank you.
So in order to be with this light, do we need to essentially convert to light to be with light?
We are the light. Why do you need to convert?
I guess as a converter, I want to convert everything.
Oh, it's just that we don't believe in what we do. That's the problem, or what we achieve. Unless they give us a degree for it. Now we have become, we got a degree, we can see our own soul. Is there a PhD to see more of it, the other backside of it? No, the soul is dynamic, it rotates. But I don't see the other side of it. So you have a degree for a front soul only. What do you need to confirm? We don't even trust our own shadow if it's ours. We've been brought up there.
Wolfgang replies again that Mr. Keshe had said the soul will shut down the body if we eat because the eating creates too much suffering for other souls. And that was part of his question from before. Why will the soul shut down the body if we eat? I think I guess there was a quote from you at one particular point, or one particular point you wanted to make, let's say. Is there something you'd like to say about that idea that the eating creates too much suffering for other souls? Perhaps they are elevated by our consumption of them.
I don't know. We will soon learn.
If you were a rice soul, what journey would you like to have? Many
Pardon?
rice souls. I was just thinking if one was a soul of a grain of rice, what journey would one want to have? Would one want to just fall off the stalk of rice and onto the ground and rot in the ground and become part of the earth again? Or what if this being came along and swallowed you up and
Or the chicken?
your soul became part of that soul and may be
Or
a
the
chicken
bird?
or might be a human, could be a bird. A bird, okay, then you get to fly. You're actually...
Who says it might be a bird which doesn't fly?
Well,
You
then
never.
you get to crawl. It could be a snake or something, but at least you're mobile. You're traveling. You're doing something other than the normal life of a rice that falls off the stalk and
Who
just
says
rots
it's a
and
bad
goes.
life? It could be a very good life.
Well,
I would
that's
like
what
to
I'm
be
saying.
grain. I would like to
That's
be
what I'm
grain of
saying.
rice, hiding between the lots, and then fall behind the table. Nobody sees you for years. It's just who knows you about. When I used to be in as part of the fun is when I used to be working in diamond bourse, and a colleague of mine lost 1 carat the flawless diamond, and he forever spoke about it. Every time I met him, I haven't found that 1 carat, you know. I lost $7,000. It was too much. $10,000 was too much. He could not get it off his head that he lost the stone. And I said, listen, you dealt in so much stones. Why does this one, it stays in your head? He said, because I couldn't make money out of it. I said, that's why you're a Jew. You can never let anything go. And then there's a habit. They don't allow any cleaners in diamond bourse. Usually themselves clean everything up. Even the bosses clean their own room just in case there's a stone on the floor. And after quite a long time, he moved the bin and the stone was hiding behind the bin. It fell in the back. And then he was so happy. And then one day I asked him, and he sold out the stones, it's precious stone. Oh, the one, you found behind the bin, you were nagging at it for months and months. He said, oh, that was another one. I said, this is a story of life. We never want to remember, and when it's done, it's over, it's next one. The man's memory is less than a fish, goldfish. It's 5 seconds. I think man's memory is instantaneous. You want to forget, you forget next one. Example of it is very simple. I put a plate of food in front of you, and I'll let you eat spoon by spoon. And then somewhere while you're eating, I say, stop. And tell you what was on your spoon 2 spoons before. You don't remember. But the time you were chewing it, you enjoyed the taste of it, the texture of it. It could have been the nicest meat you ever chewed, or the most delicious meal of the mom's cooking. You don't remember. That's the truth about existence of the man. We choose to ignore. Otherwise, every spoon we take, we remember the texture. And we say, spoon number 20 was more delicious than spoon number 2. And why? So we become habitual users that is there for the time and it's gone to the next one. But we go to a movie because we chose to put time in it. We speak about that movie 20 years down the line. Do you remember that scene? How come you don't remember 2 seconds before what was in the spoon you chewed and became part of you? We have become selective. And we become so selective that we become ignorant to the essence of true meaning of life. This is what we choose. We've chosen to be selective this way. Anything else? We do not know. But then we have to ask our question, single question. Have we actually met the passengers of the universe and we can't remember because they've told us, or we have as part of memory bank, we only remember the humans? How many of you have had a dream, or a sleep I should say, that you saw a strange creature? Was it a strange or was it from another dimension of the universe? It fitted in some shape into what you know in the physical life, in the dimension of the energy of the brain. You got to realize the purpose of part of these teachings is to intrigue you, and to cajole you trying to understand one's soul. Is to entice you to move. You might have never jumped a river, but you get to the river and the friends and others says, come on, jump, 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 jump. I'm not jumping, I've never jumped, I'm afraid I might fall in. But one instance you decide to jump because everybody's jumped, you're the last one left behind, I have to do, otherwise I'll become embarrassed. And you jump and you land and then you follow. Next second, nobody remember your jumps. It was just you who added to your soul, I am capable, I'm competent. And that's what the man's problem in moving towards his soul. That's all. One having trust in the life of the existence after leaving the physical life, or choosing when to leave the physical life. Or part-timely vacate. You do it every night. Why can't you do it during the day? You don't need to go to sleep. You just got to find a path where the soul frees itself and it allows more and more to come in. You remember the last picture of last teaching last week? A flatliner. The body of the man is the vertical, horizontal. All you need is to extend the tent.
Mr. Keshe, we have a question from Ruthie, who's had her hand up here.
Oh yeah, I just want to share something about the topic of the rise soul or whatever. Because I remember I read a book that the people said like if you eat the whole plants or whole grain, like or even a whole fruit, and then that you get the lift the soul of the whole like fruit or rice, and then they get a chance to be elevated so that it don't need to experience thousands or millions years. And then next time they can join as a part of a soul of a human. And then they are lift and they are speed up their processes to mature their soul.
I've been trying to get a hold of Caroline to explain something very nice one. What is interesting?
Yes.
Yes. Can you do something urgent, please?
Okay.
Now, you talk about if you eat the grain of the rice or the whole of the rice. What about when you get to the whole of the rice? The grain that all that rice was created out of is at the bottom of it. If you eat that with it, what's the collection? What's the answer? So what we have to understand is if we ate the mother grain and the rest of the grain which was created by it, and somebody ate one of the grains and we ate the whole lot on the grain which created it, what is the position of the soul of the man? Do we get the soul of one grain or do we get the soul of totality because we had the mother too? Sorry about that. But then it brings this question that which part are we carrying the soul of the totality, or are we carrying the soul of the mother? Has that single seed which gave life to the totality of the new seed has become the sun? It's very, very interesting when you look at the structure of life on this planet or across the universe. Why, if it's just a female cannot do much, when it's a male cannot do much, when you put a female and a male together, they can do a lot to create. What does that bring? Is the female the gravitational and the male the magnetical that it gives, and the totality of the balance creates a cycle of life? A cycle of existence of a soul? Theology of the soul is the essence of the creation universal community. It's the manual, it's the work sheet. There's an interesting question. Then, speaking about the grain, when we now have come into the business of genetic modification of the grain, do we play with the soul of the physicality of the grain, or do we play with the soul of the grain? I know the answer, and it's very easy to go back and revert back to the soul of the grain, that the change in the physicality does not count. And this is the beauty of the new knowledge in Keshe Foundation Space Program. It was not, it could not be understood, but we're trying to make a decision in if and when we release the African pig swan flu, or African swan flu paper, where we have shown that we can change, as I've said before, DNA by conversion of the help of the gases to RNA, and then influencing the DNA of the new dimensions, and then collectively reducing it to normal DNA. We can do the same thing now with the seeds. If you understand how the system works, genetic modification is open. You can genetically, unless you want it, you can genetically reverse back to original RNA, and then that original RNA dictates the presence of the existence of the DNA. We've seen it in what you call the pig flu, African swan flu, and it's in that paper. So we can give from the soul of physicality into the soul of the man. We've done that with a pig, and then we change it to another DNA that we can convert it to RNA. Then can be with plasma technology directly interfere with RNA, that no DNA changes can come into play? And the answer is yes. Depends how you know to link up the energies. Any other?
Mr. Cash, as what you mentioned, change the seeds with your soul. In China, we know there's a famous people. She has done a lot of research, and it's like a magician for a lot of people. So even like the frying beans, she can just make it recover to a fresh one, make it to grow, sprout like a little tree in front of people. So is that she understand the power of the soul and link to the soul of the beings, so that make the beings totally change the physics.
It's what you want to be seen. Do you see the growth through the eye of the man, or through the eye of the physicality of the man, or through the soul of the man? This is the first thing you got to answer. This is one of the main questions. What she makes you to see is, do you see with the eye of physicality, or do you see with the eye of the soul? Does she reach you to the soul of the man? Do you understand? It's what we said before. I can make you to see a shooting star, because I let you to have the joy through the soul. not through the dimension of physicality. The same as the dream you had, the mother told you this and that, and it became reality because you dreamt about it. If you are familiar with the work of the soul of the man and how to do it, it's very easy to do these things. You know, the father's poor. You play magic game with your children. You put a coin in your hand and then it's not there. You put it in the sleeve. Next time it's in the pocket because you know where you're going to hide it. And the little innocent child doesn't see. At the moment, the mankind is in that stage of innocence, even though he thinks he's the head of the creatures on this planet. And this is what we said. We'll never do any magic because the magic is that you see the soul of the man. Because I satisfy what your soul wants to believe.
Ms. Cash, is that means if the people don't believe and he cannot say it?
It's not a belief, it's just that you tune to a different frequency. It's that your soul sees. Your soul is aware of everything. It's just if you are open and truthful to yourself to accept and appreciate and accept the change. This is why a lot of people in professors and consultants which come across the Keshe Foundation technology, inside themselves they accept, outside they have to say no because the PhD is down the chute. What am I going to say when I accept this? But some people go to the extent I accept. It is, but this is what I've made my life out of. How can I add to my knowledge? We were witness to one very recently. A doctor specialized in brain growth or whatever. And what did he say? He said, I am such a position, but in front of this knowledge of I know nothing. I know very little. These are the souls which they will elevate. They'll try to add to. Now I know there is more than I know. I try to add to mine that I can add to others. Any other question? In a coming time, very soon, you'll be able to measure these fields, the fields of the soul of the man. Very, very soon. Some of our knowledge seekers are working in that direction, or they've been shown how to work in that direction. Then you can say this is the strength of the happiness, this is the strength of the sadness. And then for those who need quantification, you can show this is the thing. You put a patient there, you see it if it's happy or sad, because now we can measure the what we call, we have a tool to measure the strength of the happiness physically. We can now make a diagram for it. I was witness to one yesterday. It's amazing what you see. But don't forget, we showed this in Sana for 5 years ago in 2014. When I sat just skeleton in front of the detector, I knew he was a murderer. And the other guy who was with him. Because the system was set in a way that when, I'll show you how, I saw the murderer, it was there, but but you know, it's like what he said, you're here to do a job, you have to do that job. Because he is the reason in the coming European Court of Justice will confess to the murder. You will understand very, very soon. See, when this is John Skelton, he didn't understand. He had a system like this. Now I'll tell you exactly how I got him. And he had his own system, which was made by himself. So when I asked him to give, and he was pretending, don't forget, this is connected to a screen here, and this is connected to another screen here. I see full flow. Then, when I asked this stupid volume to give, he was taking. When I asked him to take, he was giving. And then I put him in a question that he got confused, and then he got himself in the rap. Happened with the other guy who was with him. Only two. And this, when the taking is stronger, it shows a murder. Has a threshold. I know that threshold. And it was the same guy who came with him from another West European country. He made him to join. He didn't originally come that way. But he came to murder. John Skelton from the beginning was brought in too. But he didn't know he's the key to bringing down the kingdom. We got enough. European Court of Justice is ready. So we know, we see the work of the field of the soul. It's very simple. But what you give can be measured. This is happiness, this is whatever, all the good things about giving. This is what you learn from the work of the soul of the man. And I developed this machine 2009, 2008. And now a very simple version of the sophisticated one I was looking at yesterday. All you need to do is to put the head of the man in there, and then you ask the question. You look at the other things, but I look at what I want to see, and I see what is the plan. There is a lie in the character, or there is a truth in the character. And then when somebody tells you this and that, you know the point of reference of the behavior. And then you say, feel happy. What does the happiness means? Is that happiness at your strength? Is a sadness at somebody else's? In 2 minutes yesterday, I could see the truth about confirmation of physicality, lying or cheating or telling the truth or trying to. It's there. This new system is amazing lie detector. But this one measures the soul. They cannot lie. Any other question? Shall we call it a day? It's only 2 hours.
Hi, Mr. Keshe, are you okay there? I had trouble. I couldn't unmute for the last 10 minutes or so, and I had to restart my Zoom.
Yeah, we are okay.
Okay.
Okay, no problem. We are in the process of understanding how little we know about who we are. Any other question?
Good day, Mr. Keshe.
Good day, Gerard.
Bayram Mubarak.
Same to you.
Mr. Keshe, last week you said I will teach you about the dream, and you're done. But what is the difference between the sleeping and the position of sleeping and the position of vertical? Is that?
It's the difference between the horizontal and the vertical people. Very simple. Sorry about that. There's a difference between the horizontal and the vertical.
But it's the same creature.
Because the physical activities are low, so the soul activity look to be high, but it's actually the same all the time. The work of the soul of the man is like a background noise. It's always there. It's just man, when he adds his work of physicality to it, it just burdens it. It's me. You mentioning this, if you remember, we talked about the man. This is the man, and oh, we make a fat man. If you look at the man frontal view, he's eaten too many souls of rice. So all the chakras you have there, whatever. Now we have this fat man. This way. And the chakras are here. But you have to understand, here you have this. Here you have this. It's a big difference. The soul of the man is free. Much more freedom. It's interactive. It's interactive. Now you can see how it works.
So this is the secret.
Pardon?
This is the secret. So
There is no secret. All it is, the sky is free here. You can expand any dimension.
yeah, because the others is occupied with different things.
Yep. But when you're asleep, even you can be awake and lie down. This has different interaction with the fields of the. If you take image of the aura of the man, vertical and horizontal, is very, very different.
How would we be in the spaceship? Because the Earth may not be nearby, and it would be the fields that exist in the universe plus the fields of the ship. So would it matter if we lie down or stand up?
You're gonna be like this. But don't forget, when you're in the spaceship, now you have another problem. You're close to these little guys, you're a star formation. He's lopsided.
So would the man of space lie down in relation to the star formation reactor at the core of the ship, let's say?
When you go to space, I think your mobile is open, somebody's microphone is open. It's like Claudia.
Paul, your microphone, please. Thank you.
You got to realize that when you become a long-term passenger of space, number of your central energies move quite differently. And in a way, some amalgamates with the others, especially those which are more connected to physicality. So you become more centralized. And the soul of the man has bigger influence. Any other question?
You have Marinez with their hand up. You want to go ahead, Marinez?
Yes, please. Thank you very much. Have a new year, the first day of spring. I wish you a very, very good year with all these new things, and Happy New Year, everybody. And so I would show my video. Can I show it?
What is in it? Has somebody seen it? Is there a music with it?
You want music?
No, we can't have a music.
It's Farsi speaking, like music.
What is it?
It's mine. It's me.
I know.
Me showing the strong points in the body of human being. Magnetical gravitational parts in my body.
I hope you're not showing us any naughty pictures.
No, sir.
Rick, have you seen it? Can you have a look at it before we go on?
No, I haven't seen it. How would you present it, Marinus?
No, it's me, and it's a magnet in a ball.
No,
and
I mean...
I put it in 3 parts of my body, and you see how it turns. And in fact, the thing first time I wanted to ask you weeks ago was how come in the lower parts it turns gravitational, my magnetic in front of my body, and the upper parts it turns counterclockwise. It's interesting. It means we are magnetical, plasmatic, absolutely entity. It comes from the Taoist idea of yin and yang. It comes from alchemic ideas and yin and yang and qi. It's the qi parts I show. It's this.
Okay, let's have a look.
Okay, and then I explain. It's fascinating. Just show it, right?
Yep. You got to share the screen.
Share. Where is share? Where is the share? I have 2.5 hands conversing.
It's a green box with the arrow on it.
Mm.
First of all, you have to have what you want to show fully on your screen, that you don't see anything else on the screen.
Okay, I see that.
Make sure it's only what you want to show.
Right.
When you're on the screen.
Exactly. It's on the screen. And then share. I just see my video.
Okay. Do you see the green share button there?
I only see Q&R conversing and things like that.
You don't see the share button in the Zoom?
I promoted her.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's the problem. Thank you, Flint. Just be a minute for her to come through here. Bear with us. We see a video there now, Marinus. If you want the audio to play, you would have to click on the options for play your computer audio when you go to share. You may have to reshare if you want to share the audio part. You have to reshare and then select the audio option if you want to share the audio. So we can't hear any of the audio right now. So either you will have to speak or we'll just, if you can restart your sharing, just
Do you have a frozen picture?
I have a frozen picture, yes.
I think, Mahrez, if you can send the video to Webmaster, next week we can show it. Then we have control over it. Can she hear us?
I don't know. Her microphone is not showing anymore on the Zoom. Sometimes this is a problem when people come in as panelists, they lose their microphone
Yeah, we lose
temporarily.
our pictures. She's
Okay,
gone.
she's gone, yeah.
I think we were to get her to send it to you, and then we...
Yeah, this is why it's best for people to send their videos or images beforehand so we can check them out. She's going to start again here, apparently.
Okay.
Are you going to try again, Marinus? We don't have your microphone, so, but if you have selected the audio option in the, you might be able to share. We don't see your video though.
I think we better get this done the other way around for next week.
Okay. So, sounds good, thank you.
What's next?
Okay, well, we do have, just a second here. I don't have the chat anymore. We have a presentation from Mario, I believe. That's been arranged by Mario, and I think you know about that, Mr. Keshe.
Which one is that one? No, I don't know.
I was told that that you already know about that. Mario,
something they've written, I can't remember. Is that done with Pitt together?
Yes, it's the presentation of the paper on the periodic table by Mario that was published in March, Plasma Scientific Journal.
Ah, okay. So what, how long does it take?
We always advise the speakers to keep it to 20 minutes, so hopefully no longer than 20 minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello, I guess that's me here, right? Yeah. Hello, Mr. Keshe and everybody. Hello, Rick.
Hi, Mario.
Actually, compared to the teachings today, I feel like this is sort of so small and almost petty compared to it. But I really, really appreciate the fact that I was able to publish my research in the plasma journals. So I kind of feel, I guess it's an obligation to do this, you know. So, okay. Should I share my screen? I guess I actually have a PDF of my version of it that was published. So I can just work off of that and maybe try to just go through it very quickly.
Okay, that sounds good. You should be able to share okay there, I think. Yeah, if we can keep it to under 20 minutes as suggested by Pete, that would probably be a good idea.
Yeah, okay, can you see? Yeah, can you see this?
Yes, yes, we see that well, thank you.
Okay. This is actually my PDF that was published. So, okay, there's a need to replace the thinking about the periodic table from counting protons, neutrons, and electrons to understanding it as, if I got this right, Mr. Keshe said actually a few months ago that the numbers represent comparative energy levels. So the numbers, the isotopes or whatever, are actually relative energy levels where the energy is, well, there's energy equals motion. So we're talking about relative motion, but there's a few workshops that are the older workshops, and I put links to them. The 56th and 60th Knowledge Seekers Workshop, the 7th Health Workshop, and a couple of the kids' workshops that are directly pertinent to this. There's a couple of quotes that I could not find the actual, I couldn't find the links to them. I couldn't find them. So there's a few quotes I have here that I could not actually get the links to. However,
excuse me, Mario, I think the microphone's rubbing on something there on your clothes or something is creating a muffled sound in the background. Maybe if you can liberated a bit there. Thank you.
Okay. How's that? Is that better?
No, still hear a bunch of noise.
Okay. Well, I'm just using the mic on my computer here, so I'm not sure. Maybe I'm
okay. Maybe there's nothing you can do then. It's just something in the background. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Maybe it's my aircon. I can turn it off.
That could be.
Yeah, some humming or something. Okay, these teachings of Mr. Keshe, the 7th Health Workshop is specifically about the periodic table. And the 56th and 60th Knowledge Seekers Workshops have information in them that most of the knowledge seekers today are really not aware of. So I really can't emphasize enough for people to go back to these. There's links in the bottom of the page of the Plasma Times that'll take you directly to the pertinent parts of this. If you go back and look at those teachings, it's not that much. It's not like you have to go through hundreds of hours. It's several hours of Mr. Keshe's teachings that are really important and make it easier to understand what I'm trying to show here. And I wanted to say that I've tried my best to avoid my own hypothesis and my own ideas about this and stick as closely as I can directly to the teachings of Mr. Keshe. Of course, they have to go through me, and so, you know, sorry about that, but can't be helped, I guess, under the circumstances. But these teachings, it's not very much, except the 56 Knowledge Seekers Workshop. The entire workshop is devoted to this subject. So that's about 3 hours or so. But the rest of it, it's not that much, and it's so much information. And I know most of the knowledge seekers have never seen these because they're back in 2014 and the early part of 2015. So I can emphasize, can't emphasize enough to those, the importance of those teachings. Anyway, but okay.
Excuse me, Mario, still getting a lot of microphone noise. Can you maybe just change the angle of your system?
Yeah.
Or is there wind blowing on it or something, perhaps?
Maybe there's that help?
So much better. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
A fan blowing on it. I like that plasma interaction. Okay. All right. According to Mr. Keshe, well, the basis of this is mostly from the 56 Knowledge Seekers Workshop. There was a fellow named Nicholas Chua who did the presentation. It was called The Flower of Life in 7 Musical Tones. His work is based on Walter Russell's work. And he recognized a correlation between Walter Russell, this diagrams that you can make from the Flower of Life and Mr. Keshe's teachings. So there's a real importance to it. Mr. Keshe said that this was given to man at the beginning. Man never understood. Where we get the 12-hour clock from, our calendars come from this. And very interesting, you have the 12-hour clock, but you also have the years divided into 7 days of the week. So you have 7 days of the week, 7 colors of the rainbow, 7 musical tones. There's a significance to this number of cycles of 7 and then repeating with the first day of the week again, an octave, so to speak, which is an infinity loop, which is, so there's so much to this. I couldn't possibly go through in 20 minutes. So I really, again, suggest going back to those workshops and seeing what Mr. Keshe taught about that. In the 60th Knowledge Seekers Workshop, I did a presentation, and Mr. Keshe opened up the knowledge and said, in 100 years, people will watch this video and still learn from what's being taught here today. So again, I can't put the emphasis enough on seeing what Mr. Keshe said. And that was 4 years ago, almost. So there's a lot of knowledge there that I couldn't possibly go through here. So I'm just going to go through this very quickly. And of course, it's my understanding of it. Okay. According to my understanding of Mr. Keshe's teachings, the fields divide into 12 segments. In book number 1, Mr. Keshe goes through it very detailed on how this manifests and such. But this diagram here is just one of the versions of the Flower of Life. So you have flow lines of energy flow, rivers of energy, arteries, if you will, radiating out from a central core at the very center. When these fields, rivers of energy curve, they curve back around on themselves and cross at where I put the little black dots. Now, my understanding of this is Mr. Keshe said, where those lines cross, one of them going out and coming back in, the other one going out, so in opposite directions, they drill a hole into the dimension, another world, another universe, what Rudolf Steiner maybe called higher worlds, whatever you want to call it. It's a very strange, actually, understanding, but these portals. So you drill, so you have these field lines going in and out. Mr. Keshe said, think of water coming out of the shower head pouring into a drain. Most of the water is going to go directly in the drain, but some of it splashes up and pools around. So where these black dots are where the field lines are crossing, and there's distinct layers of where they cross. And the backsplash of them would give you something that looks like this. You would have one of these on each layer. I've only put one on the third layer in this case. So that's the backsplash. And it's basically what Mr. Keshe said repeatedly again and again. In the macros, the same as in the micro, or what the ancients said, as above, so as below, or fractal geometry in the jargon of science. It's the same patterns repeating again and again and again and again. So when the fields splash back, they create these structures that replicate the totality of the whole structure is made up of miniature versions of the totality. So in this case, you have these 12 fields. So if you look at it as just one layer, the fields radiate out from a central core like the yolk, and they go around, and where they cross, it's the essence of creation. They go in and out of this portal, and they spray back a backsplash and create this layer of more dense energy. So you have at the center where everything is coming in and out of, and then this layer of less dense energy, the transition, or like the egg white, and then this layer of more dense energy. And it's all made of the same living energy of these rivers of energy crossing. So this would be the equivalent. This is a Coulomb barrier. So you have a Coulomb barrier inside a Coulomb barrier inside a Coulomb barrier, or an egg inside an egg inside an egg. And the thing about it is it's energy, which means it's in motion. Now, everything's rotating. If that central core is rotating, it's tethered to those central cores of the babies, if you will, creating these denser layers around it. So if the center is rotating, it's going to create rotation in all of these. And I believe that's really the simple explanation. It's like mechanics. It'll have an effect of pulling the fields in as it goes around. As it comes back around on itself, it opens back up. But at any rate, whatever's causing it, there's a heartbeat. So in other words, all these layers are pulsing. There's a contraction and an expansion. So you not only have these rivers of energy, what in Chinese they will call the feng shui, but you also have a pulsing of a contraction and an expansion of each of these layers. And as the fields go out, when they come in and out of these portals, they divert some of the energy to create these Coulomb barriers. So each layer has the Coulomb barrier itself is made up of a fraction of the totality of the mass coming out of the central core. As that feeds back into the central core, it creates a higher energy level in the form of, I think it's what it is simply just increased velocity of the flow, which means as the feedback loop comes back out, the fields literally go faster and go have a larger diameter. Something like that is happening to create these layers. And you have multiple layers of the structure of a plasma field. And it's the same for an atom as it is for a universe or a unicos. You have this structure with potentially infinite numbers of layers. So just looking at the structure of a plasma, this would be what a hydrogen atom would look like, but it's also the same thing as an oxygen atom would look like. It's not there's no such thing as electrons, protons, and neutrons. It's the image that they show in the, Atomic Energy Commission with the protons and neutrons and electrons. That is not correct. It's more like this, with Coulomb barriers around each layer. So you have these flows, these arteries that are all part of the body of the central core of the soul of the totality. And it beats as in each layer is beating with slightly higher mass than the next layer out, with a slightly slower beat rate. But at the same time, the flow rate is the inversion of that. So each layer that goes out farther has a faster flow rate. So you have the ratios of the less mass and the slower beat rates is also the inversion of the flow rates with the same ratios. So we can measure the flow rates of the structure of any plasma, layer to layer, also with the pulse rates and the relative mass rates of them. So instead of thinking in terms of numbers of protons, neutrons, and electrons, we can measure relative pulse rates. And that includes the gradient flow rates and the relative mass rates of any two entities, including atoms. So I go through this here. I think I explained most of it already. The heartbeat rates. Now, Fourier spectral analysis from the 1800s, he came up with a way to measure the harmonic overtone series, which starting from the outer layer, the outermost layer or the outermost container, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. And then the second layer in is 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1, 5-to-1, and so on. I think the standard measurement value is 128 layers at a time. But at the very least, from 1 to 128 layers of different pulse rates is more than the spectrum of all of the elements. And what happened with the Fourier spectral analysis is that scientists about 100 years ago figured out a way to calculate what they call the frequency of hydrogen, which is not correct, but a frequency that they were able to then extrapolate the energy signatures of the other elements based on hydrogen as the fundamental. They think they're counting numbers of protons and neutrons, but they're really measuring relative pulse rates. And these ratios, I believe, are the correct ratios of the elements. So, for example, go down here. For example, here's what a Fourier spectral analysis is. It's just showing multiple core reactors, but it's just a slice of it, and it's measuring the frequencies of each of the layers relative to the fundamental at the outer level, relative to the central core. So if you just take arbitrarily, because in principle, there would be infinite numbers of layers. But I have a good reason to think there's probably 128 in groups of 128s, because that would be an octave of octaves, and you can have octaves, and so on. The diameters of these layers are also directly correlated to their pulse rates. The slower the pulse rate, the larger the diameter. And so the amplitude or the relative distance of the layers is measured by amplitude. So that would be the vertical measurements and the frequencies, and they're directly correlated to each other. And again, the gradient flow. So from layer 128 to 127, the mass is 127 to 128th mass. And it has a flow rate of 127 to 128, where 1 to 128 has a flow rate of 128 times faster with a diameter, it's not 128 times it, but relatively 128 layers, relatively speaking, outwards. So it's a measure of the diameter of the field, the pulse rate of the fields, and the flow rate of the fields with the same ratios. This, simple like this. So as you go down here, I see, okay, so if we take an oxygen, which they call it 16 protons and neutrons, but if it's really just a pulse rate, a plasma that's pulsing 16 times faster at its fundamental level than the hydrogen, then the first layer, it's like any of the multiple core reactors we have. if you load a reactor, a triple core reactor, 2 triple core reactors with gas number 1, 2, and 3 in one, and the other one 3, 2, and 1, then we know that the CH3 is going to link to the CH3, and the CO2 is going to link to the CO2, and they all actually have layers that will link. But in this case, so if oxygen is 16, its fundamental layer is going to link to the hydrogen 16th layer. And then the second layer of oxygen, which is a 2-to-1 ratio, but relative to hydrogen, it's going to link to the 16th layer of hydrogen. And there's gaps in the layers. The relative position of the layer will be 16 times closer in than layer 1, and there'll be gaps there, but it will link to that layer. And so you have an energy signature that's built up. See if I can show it here, where each of the layers are linking to each of the layers. And where they cross at the center, you get only where the fields, which layers are linking, are actually drilling a hole in the center. And I guess, well, here would be the spectral analysis of it. Now, there's another one, but if I go down here, I have it easier to see here, even though the size differential. If you look at the blue is hydrogen and the green is the oxygen, then when they link only the layers that link are going to link at the center in between the two. And that drills a hole, and then the backsplash is equal to the distinct layering of the two linked together. So you get one, I'm saying this really badly, I'm trying to go fast. And okay, so let's say the blue one is oxygen, that's pulsing at 16 times. Relative to hydrogen is 1 at the green. The difference between those field strengths is going to actually be a pulse rate of 1. So, because 1 minus 15, 16 is 15, 1 minus 15 is 14, and so on. So what's going to happen is at the outer layer where there's an envelope containing the two, you have what we call a water molecule. So you have one energy pulsing at 16, another one pulsing at 1, and then the totality of those fields pulsing 1 time, because it's the difference of these fields, so that when the scientists look at that, they see a pulse of 16, they say that means there's 16 protons and neutrons, that's oxygen. They see 1, they say that's 1 hydrogen. Then they see another pulse of 1, and they assume that that must mean there's another hydrogen atom. So you get the little Mickey Mouse drawing with the oxygen, the little 2 hydrogens. But in reality, it looks more like this. It's really, the hydrogen is not an absolute value entity. It's an energy pulse relative to what we measure as hydrogen based on our amino acid, not one proton, one neutron, one electron, which has to be a certain size. This larger molecule is pulsing at 1 time. You could, when they look out at the universe and they see something pulsing at what they perceive as 16 times, they think, oh, it's oxygen, or the same pulse rate as hydrogen, they think that's a hydrogen atom or hydrogen atoms or whatever, but it's really could be a galaxy-sized pulse, just happens to be the energy pulse of hydrogen. So, wow, there's so many things here I need to go into more detail, and I'm saying it very badly. So I really highly suggest people go back to Mr. Keshe's teachings on that. And maybe I should just finish up here. I know it's a long day today. So I want to thank everybody again so much for allowing me to publish this work. So thank you.
Okay, Mario, I hope you didn't feel like your pressure did end prematurely here.
Oh, I'm really nervous. I don't know why. I play in front of people for a living, but for doing this, yeah.
Well, I thought you did quite well. You've done this kind of presentation quite a few times, actually, and you've given private teachings with it in the KFSSI, and you've done many presentations in the Keshe Plasma Reactor Group, and originally back, you were interacting back with Mr. Keshe and others previously and so on. So you've got quite a history on this, but I thought you laid it out quite well today. And in spite of maybe the pressure actually helped to keep it more succinct in a way. But, yeah, so perhaps we can open it up to questions for a couple of minutes here and see if anybody would like some clarification, or perhaps perhaps Mr. Keshe would like to interact also about this. Okay, are there any questions from anyone? Okay, well, people are a little shy for questions right now. Mr. Keshe, do you have anything you'd like to say about this? I think you've left everyone speechless, Mario.
I get that a lot. I get that a lot.
I get that a lot when I talk to people too. Okay, well, perhaps we're okay with it the way it is, and
drove Mr. Keshe away, did I?
I'm not sure what happened there. He's not. We're not hearing you, Mr. Keshe, so I'm not sure if you're still there and awake or what's happening. Okay, bear with me.
There's a question there from Facebook.
From where? Sorry, Flint.
Facebook.
Okay, let me get that. I see. Oh, there we go. Question from Bente. She's just wondering. I don't think the universe is so beautifully exact, and really, I think this type of drawings and numbers is the human being's urge to measure. What do you think about that, Mario?
Well, okay, yeah, that's a really good point, and okay.
It's like what Azar brought up earlier about the measurement and how mankind tends to want to measure everything. Is that part of what how do you integrate that?
Well, first of all, we do measure things because we have to measure the gas materials so we know what we're doing. So it's just that doing this way, we think of not by counting numbers of protons and neutrons and just adding them and a general statement of a gradient from the strongest to the weakest. We can actually look at the interactions of every single layer to every other single layer and get a lot more control over what we're doing with our gas materials. Yeah, if we realize that it's this structure and not protons, neutrons, and electrons, they're not fixed, they are malleable, and they do behave with a certain set of rules. So it's just about having more control. But as far as, yes, being too clean, see, everything in the universe, this is what I call the standard default. This was given to man in the very beginning by by the man from space, Mr. Keshe said. So this goes right back to the very beginning. But everything in the universe, nothing is standard default. Everything is from the unicos down or out, however you want to look at it. Everything is filtered. Everything has got its own adaptations, its own variations. This is the basic theme. But if everything in the universe is filtered, is not standard, then how do you measure? How do you know what it's a deviation from. How far is it deviated? So that's what this is for. This is a standard default measuring tool. Mr. Keshe literally called it a tool the man for space uses for navigation, right? At least one of the drawings with numerical values in a place in a certain way. So it is a way to measure, but it's the measuring tool that you measure the variations from. Everything in the universe is a variation and multiplied multiple times. So this is just looking at the fractal geometric pattern. That's the basic theme. Nothing is the theme. Everything is variations, right? So again, it's nothing more than a standard measuring tool. It's like a yardstick. Doesn't mean everything in the universe is 1 yard long. It's just some way to get some kind of bearings so that you can tune to the frequency the right way. You can tune to the layering and so on. So yes, you're right. It is too clean. Nothing in the universe is like that. Everything is filtered. Everything has, even the hydrogen doesn't have every layer. None of the elements have every layer. They're all the result of the difference of the fields interacting that generate them. So there's nothing that's standard default. Is that answer?
I think it's pretty good.
Okay.
We'll have to get Bente will probably have another question because she has lots of questions, but that's okay. We'll let her ponder that for now. I've got something I'd like to demonstrate that shows your image that we see here. And I'm just realizing that I discovered something in the last week. Is actually I discovered it with Flint accidentally when we were having a conversation. And I'd like to present it right now because it seems appropriate. It just seems to explain partly your diagram here. So let me,
I'll stop sharing.
I'm just going to start my video. Okay, let me get that dialed in a little better here. All right, so you should be able to see that video, I think, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we could look at these two circular images here as similar to what was shown with Mario's image, correct? And we could look at these, in a way, we could look at these as what traditional science has called atoms, or these, separate entities like the hydrogens and the oxygens, and supposedly they combine in certain ways and so on. But with Mario's presentation, it's a different scenario. These aren't hard shelled things anymore. They're multi-layered plasmas. And if we look at this, if we expand this out and allow it to become its true shape, which is a toroid. One is decided to jump off here, which is another part I wanted to show. So if we look at these as two toroids, and we can see the field lines that Mario was describing in his image. If you look at it more like this way, perhaps, but I'll do it this way to have more desktop use. So what I discovered when I was playing with these are called toroidal flux is one of the names, but it's basically a toroidal toy you can use to play with and so on. And what I noticed was when both of these are rotating in the same direction as they are right now, say, and they come close together, they just bounce off. They do not merge, they bounce. Sometimes they bounce quite violently and go all over the place. So, okay, if we think of these as rotating atoms, then of course they're not going to just merge very easily. But when they are counter-rotating, strangely enough, they can merge. And these fields actually interact and they become like a gear, and these two entities can coexist with each other, and yet they're intimately connected with each other. I thought, well, that's quite interesting. That's like an atom, or sorry, more like a molecule, let's say, or the H2 hydrogen molecule, two hydrogens, or even the oxygen and hydrogen or whatever. And then I thought, well, what happens when we try to combine these? When they're both rotating the same direction, you can't combine them. They just bounce off. When they're counter-rotating, one clockwise and one counterclockwise, then they merge. And I thought, well, what happens when, what can we achieve fusion this way of them both merging together? And you notice on Mario's drawing, when one's above the other, there's the total circle that includes a different dimension, a Coulomb barrier around both of them. Well, I was thinking, what happens when they're combined? Well, here's what happens when these two toroids combine. It's very simple. To combine them, you just combine them. And what it does is it forms a perfect sphere. So let's look at that again. Slow motion. And the sphere has the it's got the angle of the fields like Mario has suggested, and you can see all the interacting places on those fields. So we have two.
Your camera got there.
Whoops, what happened? Oh, it's back again. Yeah, I'm kind of straddling the camera and got all excited here, I guess. But I find this fascinating that these two entities, from simply if they're spinning at the same speed, if we can get them to be at the same level, then they simply merge together to form a spherical entity that's combines the both. And
yeah, if you add to that, Rick, that both of those pulses, that they're collapsing and expanding themselves. So now you add the motion of it collapsing in and then expanding and collapsing and expanding plus rotation. Then you get an idea of what's happening, right? That's really each one of those individuals are expanding and contracting, expanding and contracting. Sometimes billions of times, sometimes once every grand solar cycle. Yeah. So
sometimes they fold down and they perhaps become, this to me is more like the RNA compared to the DNA. This is the folded down, the basic information is still there, and it unfolds later and becomes the three-dimensional thing that we know as the atoms or DNA or other structures that seem to have a physicality dimension to them. But they can all be just folded down into their component parts as well.
If I can just interrupt you, but these plasmas, this one can only contract two-dimensionally, so to speak. In other words, you still have the full diameter, but if you imagine that the whole thing contracts into a single dot and then it expands out, but it keeps the lattice structure, right? So it's always this, and it's contracting in and expanding, contracting and rotating. And if you have one that's 2 times faster or 16 times faster, then you're going to get a different behavior, relatively speaking, than if they're both the same. So you have a deuterium with 2 pulses at the same, or you have a water molecule where you have, yeah, something like that. Only it would be, the whole thing would be collapsing into a single point, but that's the idea.
So this also looks like your 2 images of the, and as they come together, there's that interacting place in between. I also noticed that if you look at this, you see a core, that core, which is the same as the spaceship sort of image in a way. And that core, when it compresses, is tight. But when this outer shell compresses, the core actually expands. When the outer shell expands, the core compresses. And that's, to me, the expansion and contraction at the same time going on. And it's interesting with this shape that it can accommodate, and it travels. It's the most natural shape in the universe. It's able to adapt to any entity. I can take a stick, put it on a stick, and it performs the same function. You can do it with a piece of wire, a piece of rope, or a large tube. It doesn't matter. The inner diameter adapts to it, and it's completely happy functioning that way. So this seems like a universal shape, and I think it's associated with the images that was put forth by Mario. So I just wanted to show this little revelation about being able to combine two toroids, and it forms a sphere. And this is the sphere of the Earth, the combination of two toroids that have come together, perhaps in that dimension, in the dimension of energy. Perhaps that's what forms the spheres. Anyway, something to think about.
Rick?
Hello?
Hello,
yes.
Hello everybody. Rick, you just helped me visualize how a portal can work. So when you put the stick inside the middle of the plasma, if you can do that, or your hand, see? So you have one side of that stick, and if you pull that together, see? Imagine you keep the rolling toroid on the same spot.
Whoops.
In somewhere in the universe, and you just put the stick on one side and gets into the other. Because now the toroid is moving its position, but if it were in the same position, but the stick comes from a side and gets out from the other side. See, it's some sort of portal.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to present here, and that's it for now. Thank you, Mario. That was a great presentation there. So I think we're done with that part now, and perhaps we should think about closing down for today. There's been a lot of information and a lot of deep teaching from Mr. Keshe.
I have something from Keshe Foundation Iranian. They sent for Mr. Keshe for the occasion of the Persian New Year, but I sent it to Mr. Keshe. If Mr. Keshe allowed, I'd like to read it for him, please.
Mr. Keshe, are you there?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Can I read, Mr. Keshe?
Go ahead. It's a gift from Thank you very much.
Okay, so I can go ahead, yes?
Yes, sounds good, Azar. Thank you.
Okay. Let me get to it. So. Yes, Mr. Keshe. Okay, I'm going to start. زرتشت عصا به آب نزد تا رود نیل را بشکافد. زرتشت مردگان را زنده نمی کرد. زرتشت شمشیر نداشت. زرتشت وعده بهشت و حوریان بهشتی نمیداد. زرتشت دستور کشتن کسی که با او مخالفت میکرد را نداد. زرتشت کسی را به خاطر نجاتش حار و حقیر نمیشمرد. زرتشت کسی را نجس نخواند. زرتشت شأن کسی را به خاطر دین و مذهبش پایین نیاورد. زرتشت کسی را به خاطر شراب خوردن و بسیار بیش از اینها. زرتشت تنها یک چراغ را روشن کرد تا جلوی پایت را ببینی. چراغ انسانیت، گفتار نیک، پندار نیک، کردار نیک. عید سرزمین کوروش بزرگ بر استاد گرامی مهران توکلی کش خجسته باد. هیچ کلامی و هیچ نام شایسته تر از این نام برای شما نیافتیم. به ما افتخار این را بدهید تا شما را پدر سرزمین کنونی ایران بنامیم. دلها و روحهای ما را لمس کردید و این عشق چنان عظیم است که در کلمات نمی گنجد. سالی بدون عشق زندگیم سپری کردم، ولی شما چنان عشقی به من آموختید که تمام دنیا در مقابل آن هیچ است. این عشق در این سرزمین تازگی ندارد و بارها تکرار شده و همچون مولانا و شمس. فقط استاد گرامی این بار دست این ملت را از بازو بگیرید، نه از مچ دست، که طاقت درد این جدا شدن را ندارم. دوستتان داریم و قلب‌هایمان برای دیدار شما مشتاقانه می‌تپد. حکمت را شما می‌دانید و ما در جستجوی آنیم که آنم آرزوست. پاینده باشید و سپاسگزاریم که هستید. دوستان مشتاقان دیدار شما، گروه بنیادکش در ایران عزیز. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The teaching of today is very much as part of the structure of the total teaching in the space. It is important to understand and collectively in parts, putting everything together to achieve the final destiny of mankind in the space. A lot of people come around the work of the foundation expecting different things, but not many grasp the totality of the knowledge. In the coming weeks, we will look in the depth of the knowledge how to connect and interconnect all this knowledge that become beneficial to the mankind. The Keshe Foundation is part of the structure of the soul of mankind, which means we try to find our own soul. We are no guiding line to no one, and we are no prophet or whatever to the others. Is understanding the totality that in space we become mature enough to not to behave and have the childish behavior, but to be the man, and to be proud to be a man from the planet Earth. But in the process, many people have many expectations. Many people understand that the knowledge of man is unique for the man and mankind. In the next few weeks, we try to go more in depth to and for the understanding of the totality. Very soon we will announce the opening of the first international space center, spaceship center in the world. It's a majestic place, and it will be the first position to test the space flight. I've been there very recently, and it's beautiful to see it. And in so many ways, mankind has entered and is entering in the final phase, in the frontiers of the moving into space as a one race, but needs to understand more of the knowledge is complete. It's just understanding, decoding it, and being able to be a useful entity in the structure of the universe. That's all it is. We are not trying to teach man to how to fly. But we are trying to teach man to be perfect once he appears as part of universal community. Not to be shorter or not to be below, but to be equal. And this takes a lot of work, because when one member of a family in meeting the other has a stain of different color, it shows very clearly when you are inside with others. You're trying to take mankind into society without the stain, but with the beauty of his understanding of totality. It becomes heavier for those who prefer not to be there, but it becomes easier for those who understand and want to be part. It is not the responsibility or obligation to take man into universal community, but it's a pleasure. And this is what mankind has to have to understand. The universal community will carry on with or without the man. It's the man who misses the beauty of the family. As it's been up to now. I wish you all a beautiful time, and as is today, 21st of March, beginning of the spring, this brings a spring for humanity in the new opening of the greeting of the universal community to greet man to join the universal family in peace, in understanding of the totality and the path to the Creator. Thank you very much for today. Sorry I have a very rough time in breathing, very bad cold, but it's the knowledge which counts and not the voice. Thank you very much, and we hopefully see you next week and a few more weeks till we accomplish the education of the man, for the man to sit for the exams to enter the universal community through the examination of understanding peace and equality through the soul of the man and nothing else. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Keshe, once again for yet another Knowledge Seekers Workshop. This one being the 268th for Thursday, March 21st, 2019. First, is there any other things we need to announce or say before we end the workshop? Anybody have anything? Okay. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you here next week, same time, same place, for another Knowledge Seekers Workshop. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Hello. We are the Keshe Foundation. Our mission is to bring peace on Earth and join humanity with the universal community. We wish and work to bring man as equal to all beings in the universe. By teaching plasma science and technology equally to everyone, no one is left out and no one is abused due to lack of knowledge. By donating to us, you can help achieve this goal. keshefoundation.org/donate.
plasma products found at keshefoundation.org/store. Soothing, reusable plasma eye and migraine mask. Eliminate eye fatigue and relieve stress in eye area. European certified medical device. Massaging plasma insoles. Bring comfort back to your feet and energize your legs. European CE certified medical device. Antiseptic plasma liquid hand soap. Promotes well-being and relaxation with protective plasma formula. CE certified. One Soul Plasma T-shirt. GAN's formula within the symbols and stripes brings mind, soul, and body into balance. European certified. Pain Relief Pen. Emits a concentrated plasma field at point of pain, efficient up to 3 centimeters below the skin. CE certified. The Magrav's Energizer and Alkalizer raises pH and energizes water through magnetic and gravitational fields. CE certified medical device. Pain Relief Pad, a result of years of research in nanoplasma technology with magnetic and gravitational fields. CE certified medical device. Visit the online store at keshefoundation.org/store or find a distributor near you. Tax and shipping not included.